Hi, so we're in the time of year where a lot of students are applying to colleges, music schools, conservatories, and they're preparing for auditions. So for everyone who's applying this year, auditioning this year, and even people who are thinking of applying in the next couple of years, so maybe high schoolers, I wanted to talk a little bit about the application and audition process for conservatories and the like. So I thought there were a lot of things that we could discuss, so I wanted to do a couple of different videos to form a sort of series on this subject area. And the first topic that I wanted to discuss is whether music school is right for you. And I think there are a couple of considerations to have when we're thinking about whether we want to apply to conservatory. So the first thing to consider is what your interest level is and where you want to take music in your life. So what I mean by that is to really think about what music means to you, if it's something that you want to do as a career or if it's something that you're passionate about but you could see yourself pursuing it as a hobby on the side of a different career. Something that I found helpful when I was considering whether I wanted to pursue music as a career was to consider different pathways in the music field in terms of different careers that I could pursue once I had my degree. And I tried to picture myself in those different jobs and to see whether I would enjoy those things. It also helped that I was able to have experience in those different fields in high school and prior to high school as well, so that I had real world experience to whether I would actually like those different kinds of careers. So for me, as a violist, I was considering being a soloist, being a chamber musician, being an orchestral musician, being a private teacher or a classroom teacher. And among all of those different things, I really thought about what would go into it. So whether I really did like to practice consistently every day. I think for any instrumentalist, that's a really important factor, is whether you actually just like working on music itself. I thought about whether I liked to perform. I thought about whether I liked to collaborate with people and what it looked like in different settings, whether it was with small ensembles or big ensembles. And I also thought about my other interests because I was also considering different academic areas of study as well. So I thought really in depth about what would go into each degree and then what I would need to do to be successful in my field if I were to pursue each different career choice. And I felt most strongly about music, that I was passionate about it, that I could see myself most realistically in those different fields. So I determined for myself that I was going to go for music. I do want to add though, even if you have several other interests like I did, it doesn't mean that you cannot pursue music. A teacher of mine when I was growing up who taught music at school actually told me that if I felt like I could live without music, that meant that I wasn't passionate enough to pursue music as a career. And I think it's a common misconception that a lot of students feel that if they have other interests that they could pursue, that they should just go for that instead of music. So if music isn't the thing you need to live, then it's not worth pursuing as a career choice. I see why people think that because you do have to make some sacrifices, and in the beginning of your career, you do have to work really hard to basically make the minimum to survive as a person, to pay your bills. But with that in mind, I don't think that music needs to be your only interest or passion. And I actually feel that as a musician, you need to have other interests and passions because music and performing is all about an expression of life and all of the different ways that we enjoy life or the different emotions we go through throughout life in different scenarios and situations. And without life experiences and time in other fields or other interests, it's really hard to capture the breadth of human experience. So I actually think it's important to have other interests and hobbies and such. not every interest has to be monetized. It doesn't have to be put into a job setting or a career setting. It can just remain a hobby or something that you discover about, learn more about, and is just an interest. Something that I did say though, that in the beginning of a music career, it is wise to expect some struggle. I would say that this idea of the starving artist, however, isn't necessarily a healthy picture. It's not necessarily the most realistic either, because it's perfectly normal to be able to afford everything that you need to in the beginning of your musical career. It's just a matter of whether you're doing your dream jobs yet or if you're working towards that. For example, I know a bunch of people who might teach private lessons and build a studio that way to make enough money to afford their bills at the beginning of their career. And for them, teaching isn't their end all be all. It's not the career that they would choose for themselves. So they do that while they potentially audition on the weekends for orchestras or whatever it looks like that they want to actually do. But what I mean with the struggle at the beginning is just being flexible with what you actually are doing to be paid, because it might not always be your dream job right away, which is fine. It's perfectly normal. And I think it's just about persistence and continuing to work on the things that you need to, whether it's auditioning consistently and just putting yourself out there even if you don't get the jobs right away. Or maybe it's continuing to perform so that you make a name for yourself as a soloist. There are a lot of different ways to build up your career, and it's just a matter of being creative and flexible in the first steps of your career and being patient, continuing to stick with it. The next thing to consider after your interest level is your skill level, because it's one thing to want to pursue music as a career path, and it's another thing to realistically get into music school. I'd say there are several different programs that you could look at. You could go to a state school that offers a music program of your choice. You could also look at universities that also have music programs that could serve as standalone conservatories. I'm thinking of schools like Indiana at Bloomington, Northwestern, Rice University. Their music schools are really good and can serve as their own conservatory sort of institute. It's just at a university, and you have the option of taking other classes there too if you want to also pursue another major, a minor, just have other classes that are more academically minded in case you want that on a transcript if you were to consider a different degree after music. You could also apply to conservatories, and I would say if you compare state schools with universities with music programs like Rice or Northwestern and conservatories, I would say the state schools have a lower skill requirement to get in, and the universities with music programs and conservatories require a higher skill level to get into those programs. So it's possible that people of varying different skill levels could get into music school. It just means that you need to apply to the right schools for the skill level that you have. Again, a private teacher could instruct you on how to do that and advise you on which schools would be right for you. I would do your research, talk to teachers, and schedule trial lessons with the teachers you would want to study with in college to see if it would be a good match for you and to ask them whether they could see you getting into the school that they teach at. So these are some thoughts I have that I feel would be helpful for anyone thinking about applying to conservatory, applying to music school, to ask yourself some questions that are more concrete so that you can truly assess whether this is the career path for you and whether applying to conservatory is the right career choice for you, the right education path for you.